Well, will you look at that? It's another Packard 12 engine. This one here is a 1936. It's the same from 35 to 39. They're all 473 cubic inch and put out about 175 horsepower. For the past couple years, I've been looking for a spare, not only for this car, but just to have something to learn on. These engines are pretty complex inside, and I really don't want to experiment on a perfectly good engine and risk messing it up. So at least this one here, I can tear it apart, take my time, learn as I go. But it's about 80% complete. There's the clutch and the pressure plate still. This inspection plate here is blown out, but it's pretty thin aluminum. Exhaust manifold's pretty rough. They are prone to cracking. I believe at one point mine was cracked and it's been rewelded. At least whoever rewelded this used looks to be like a nickel electrode, being that it's not really that rusty. But other than that, I found this, of all places, I found this on eBay, an hour and a half away from my house. It also came with the transmission. The transmission is a 3-speed, and it's in pretty rough shape also. It's locked up. Luckily, I do have a spare that's out of a 1938 Super 8, which they're the same transmission in the 8s and the 12s. The only difference is probably the gearing that's inside, and this output shaft for your drive shaft is 6-bolt, whereas the one over here is a 4-bolt for the Super 8. This one's nice though. It's still, I mean, it turns free. Here's some more parts that came with the V12 over there. The water pump pulley, the loom for the spark plug wires, and the dual coil base, which luckily majority of the spare parts that I have for mine are also compatible with this engine. Now, there were some differences. There were some revisions made throughout the years. For example, this is that's your oil filter. They were a Purelator L8, and they were just a throwaway canister. You couldn't take it apart or anything. When it was used up, threw it away. This is that's your oil cooler and your oil pressure regulator. They are all one unit. That all comes off all as one unit, whereas my 38, you can take one off and then take the other one off. So, also a difference between the 38 and this 36 is the oil fill in the dipstick location. The dipstick would go right there, which is on the left on this one, and on the 38 it's on the right. Also, there's a tube that comes up above the fender for the oil fill, being that they changed the body style a little bit from 37 into 38. So they changed the front grille, they changed the front bumpers. 37s had a solid windshield. 38 was the first year for the split windshield, and the 37s had a lot longer. They had a lot longer hood. So I have 3 vents: 37, 36, 35. You know, all the way down to 32. The hoods were a lot longer down. You had 2 extra vents for ventilation. And the fenders, instead of rounding off right here, they went completely down to the chassis. It was a lot easier to be able to work on your engine. So, I'm 5'7", and if I have to change the oil filter or mess with the starter or the fuel pump, I gotta get on my little step stool my grandfather made me. So, but if we come over to this end here, I'll lift it up and show you the difference with the oil fill location in the dipstick. So there's the oil fill. There's the dipstick. And you can kind of see down there how that, where that housing is and how that tube comes out for the oil fill. But pretty much they're similar. This engine here had a Delco starter and a Delco generator, whereas 38 they had auto light. It doesn't matter which one you use, they both did the same thing. Only a Packard 12 purist would, give you hell that you have the wrong setup, but who cares? I like to drive my car and enjoy it. I'd rather be reliable than 100% correct. So if you go over here, these are some of my spare parts for mine. So I have a carburetor. Here's a base for the distributor. Being that this one here is snapped off, and unfortunately the little drive shaft that is down there, it's snapped off along with it. That drives the distributor rotor. But we got a spare set of head gaskets, belts. Here's your dual point distributors, the inside of what one looks like. One's a Delco, one's an auto light. Just a whole bunch of goodies. Starter, the twin coil packs that go on the front. They'll go right here. And then those L8 filters I was talking about, they're right there, made by Purelator. Here's one. These are all slightly used. And I've cut one open before, and I tell you what, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of crud in there. On the oil pump, down at the very bottom of the pan, there's a real fine mesh screen that pretty much gets, 90% of all the junk. So, but I'm gonna set this down. I'll pull that exhaust manifold off. You can see the valve train inside. Pull that one head off because it's a virgin motor, 35,000 or 45,000 miles. It's never been rebuilt. It still has all the stamps on the cylinders and the valves of what number they are, 1 through 12 for the valves. And then the cylinder banks are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F. Valve cover is, yeah, it's pretty shot, and the gasket is riveted to it right here. So you got to grind these off. Mine has flathead screws in it, because that was the only way to change the valve cover gasket. You got to grind the rivets off. Aluminum heads with soft plugs. All this will have to Here's your valve train, 24 valve. And the valves actually say Packard on them. You can see how they're labeled: 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So these two are intake valves, and they're about shot. They're not salvageable. Won't be able to reuse them. And then your cylinder banks. So there's AA, and then CC, and BB. So it's pretty cool. It's going to be a whole new learning experience. So, and it's going to be a while before I actually get around to doing anything with it. I still have to acquire a bunch of parts. What you can find, at least there's a company that makes reproduction water jackets and the valve cover. So that's a little update of my latest purchase for the Packard. what the end game is for this is to build a running example to put on a stand to pull behind a trailer on my Packard to take to shows. So, but that's it for the day. Thanks for watching.